In this video, I'm going to take you through exactly how to get your coaching business unstuck in 2025 and how to finally grow to those heights and levels you're after. In previous videos, we've gone super heavy on things like lead generation, sales, tactics, methodology, techniques, all of these amazing stuff. However, one of the biggest things I see missing a lot of the time is actually people talking about the blocks, like the psychological blocks, and what's the reason most times things don't happen. Because the reality is, if you have all the tools, all the strategy, all the tactics, but you're not implementing on the tactics to grow, you don't need more tactics, you don't need more techniques, you don't need more to do. You just need to give yourself the permission to do it. And I'm gonna try and take you through a conversation on this video in terms of how you can finally get yourself to do these tactics, do those techniques to grow. And kind of one of the biggest things I've seen, having worked with over 100 personal trainers, 100 coaches, with growing their fitness business as well. And more often than not, actually one of the biggest things and biggest issues I hear with coaches that are finding themselves stuck in terms of growing to that next level. And the next level could be different, and the threshold could be very different from person to person. For example, I know when I first started out, I had a very kind of low self-esteem, low confidence, low kind of self-worth of myself. So I was undercharging, like physically undercharging, and I was working way too much, and I was ending up burning out, and I didn't really take much money home for my business. This was 6 years ago when I first started my online business and started getting busy with it. Some other people's threshold could be higher, they could have had a better upbringing, all of these things, and their threshold to money, their salaries, like the amount of money they take home, their quality of life could be higher. So you need to figure out where your threshold is and what's that kind of revenue marker you're stuck at. For me, 6 years ago, my threshold is I'd say around 10K per month within my business, and then anything higher than that, I was just crippling myself, and I wasn't really taking that money home, and I wasn't really doing much with it. Didn't want to grow. For some people, it could be less. Some people, it could be 3K, 4K per month. Some people, it could be more. I don't know. But whatever your threshold is, and wherever you are kind of struggling to grow past, one of the most common fears people have and limiting beliefs people have around growing their fitness business is actually fear of failure. And fear of failure is actually going to be very different here. Fear of failure for most coaches I speak to, when I say fear of failure, is fear of letting their clients down. Fear that if they try and be more aggressive with their sales, they try and be more aggressive with their lead generation, if they post more content, they're going to take more clients, they're going to get more overwhelmed, and the current delivery, the current coaching program, and the way they work with clients and the service is going to become much worse. People are going to leave, they're going to be judged publicly, they're going to have a bad reputation, and they're going to fail, and they're going to be miserable, and they're going to be homeless, like all of these things, right? That's the negative spiral I hear and I see from a lot of coaches. Maybe I'm lucky because I work with coaches that genuinely want to deliver like a phenomenal service to clients they want to work with. But that's one of the biggest fears I hear, and one of the biggest fears I personally see. Coaches have that kind of lets them down in terms of growing their coaching business. And I'm going to run you through a slightly different perspective in terms of how to actually solve that, to allow yourself to grow and make rapid progress, right? The very first thing we need to address and we need to look at is, like, why have we built a business? Why have we built a coaching program that entitles your clients to get all of you all the time? That's the very first thing we actually need to have a conversation with and think about. Any other service you work with a person, a psychologist, a therapist, a hairdresser, a cook, a chef, anyone, any kind of service, any kind of business in the world, you pay a service for, you're going to get this professional to be there for 1 hour, for 2 hours, 3 hours a week, whatever it might be. You're not going to get them to be with you hold in your hand every single moment of every single waking hour. And I think this is a really powerful reminder. And why I say that isn't that you need to allocate just 1 hour a day or 1 hour a week or 1 hour a month per coaching client. It's just for you to realize that you need to have better boundaries, and that you're definitely over delivering much more than you realize for your coaching clients, right? That's the very first thing to keep in mind. The current clients you have, if they're getting 1 hour a week with you, they're already getting the service, they're already getting the coaching program, right? For example. So that's the very first thing to keep in mind. Obviously, if someone's having a hard time and they've dropped you a message, you can take 5 minutes to respond to them over WhatsApp. But what I mean is then that way around, what that allows you to do is it gives you a beautiful perspective, because if your current coaching program, I would actually work back on this with pen and paper after this video. At least I certainly think about it. How much time does per client do you allocate per client that signs up? If your coaching program's £200 a month and you have 10 clients, how much time does one client get with you per week? And that's the total time for per week. If they get 30 minutes per week or 1 hour a week or whatever it might be the average, it gives you a really good allocation to know where your ceiling is with your coaching program, how many clients you can realistically work with until you're completely capped. And then looking at kind of fixing that as well. That would be the first thing I'd look at. If you're already at capacity in your work, if you give every client you have 1 hour a week and you have 40 clients, you're working 40 hours a week, the very next thing would probably be raising your prices to grow. So that's kind of the very first thing I'd look at. I'd look at how many clients you have on your books at the minute. If you have 20 clients and you're giving everyone 1 hour a week with you, that's 20-hour work week already. I'd probably look at raising your prices very, very, very fast. So you can kind of work with more clients, you can grow and do all of these things. That's the very first thing I'd look at. And then the second thing, in terms of finally being able to grow more aggressively, is just being much more meticulous with blocking out your lead generation and sales kind of blocks in your calendar, because your clients likely get the 1 hour, the 2 hours, whatever it is, per month, per week, already blocked out in your calendar. They're quite demanding, but I'd actually look at blocking out your lead generation and sales calendar tasks first in your business, and then after that blocking out your client tasks around that, because the truth is that's going to grow your coaching business super fast, or much faster certainly than what's happening now. And then once you have that in place, you can grow much quicker, and then clients are going to get better results because there's more clients coming through, there's more of a community there's more people that they can speak to. And you can grow, you can hire more support, you can hire an assistant coach, you can hire a success coach, whatever it might be. You can pay for guest trainings. If you have 40 clients, you go to 80 clients, you can hire someone that wants to teach, that can teach mindset for you guys once a month. That's someone that's better than you at this, then they can grow and take that on. So that's where I'd really look at with this. I'd look at really being very meticulous with your client fulfillment time, really setting clear boundaries as to when you're working on coaching your clients. But then alongside that, really, really getting super meticulous with actually having in your calendar days that are specific for sales, for lead generation, for driving the sales and the cash of the business. And those tasks typically are going to be what's going to book your sales calls and what's going to close your sales calls this month. Most of this would be looking at messaging. Most of this would be looking at content, and getting content, not just creating fun content, but creating content that generates leads and sales, and really being meticulous with that. Another thing that can massively help in terms of getting your business and starting growing is actually having days in your calendar every single week which are specifically just for this, right? Days in your calendar which are specific just for sales, just for moving the needle forward in a business. For 99% of fitness businesses trying to go from 3K, 4K, 5K to 10K per month, It'd be what's going to book my business sales calls, what's going to close these sales calls, and if you have the data points there on the back end, you can then very quickly and easily figure out what is it going to book me sales calls, what's going to allow me to grow, drive that forward, and then you're off to the races. That's the biggest stuff I've seen. That's the biggest conversation today that I'm seeing at the minute. If you need more help with this, if you're feeling a bit lost with where to take things, how to actually drive that success forward, I'll leave a link down below of this video so you can book yourself a call to speak to myself one-to-one. We can review, we can audit your business, see how and what your schedule and calendar should look like for that next phase of growth, and we can create a custom game plan based on that. Any other questions, anything else you want to see more of, leave it in the comments and it will be covered.